1 week into the season, and it already feels like the Blue Jackets are heading their way to the lottery draft again. I'm going to talk about why it's too soon to be talking about that. That's today on Locked on Blue Jackets.
You're Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Hayden. Not with me today, but with me tomorrow previewing the Flames will be my co-host, Jay Foster. We are here to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of your favorite team and ours, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before you go on, thank you so much for making this your first listen every day. If it's your second or third listen, thank you as well. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We're free right here on YouTube and free on the Sirius XM app. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. All right, middle of the week here, Blue Jackets with a nice 3-day break. It's not so nice because of how the week started with that Monday 4-0 loss to the Red Wings, and just got done watching the Red Wings-Penguins game, and already that loss starts to feel a little bit better, right? Because the Red Wings were playing the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Penguins are a team that got Erik Karlsson, got Riley Smith, they got Kyle Dubas in their GM position now. A lot has changed there, but they still have Malkin, Letang, Crosby. Like, we know who they are. Gensel. Like, they are a stacked team. Mike Sullivan, who's the second longest tenured coach. The Detroit Red Wings, after beating the Blue Jackets 4-0 at Nationwide Arena, which was, like I said, it was Joe Louis Arena South for the Red Wings on Monday night. Tons of Red Wings fans in the building. It was sickening. It was sickening for Blue Jackets fans. I think it was sickening for the players. But again, I think the Blue Jackets have a lot of players that maybe aren't used to that. They're coming from teams like Philadelphia, teams like New Jersey, where they pack the barn and they have loyal fans that don't sell their tickets away to away fans. Granted, Blue Jackets, different situation. Got Detroit, Pittsburgh, big major cities close by. So it was nothing new to Blue Jackets fans to see that. And the team got housed. I'm not saying that's why the team got housed, but that was a big reason. Also, the Red Wings are just really freaking good. I just watched the Penguins then just take on the Penguins tonight on Wednesday night rivalry night. It used to be called when it was on NBC. Now it's just NHL on TNT, whatever. And the Red Wings beat the Penguins 6-3. And I was kind of watching that game, and I was getting similar vibes from when the Blue Jackets played the Red Wings, right? Because first of all, the Penguins got an early goal with Riley Smith connecting with Evgeny Malkin, and the Red Wings bounced back. They came back, won the game, and it was very similar second period in that game as it was Monday night's bout with the Blue Jackets, where the second period just got absolutely just stolen from the Blue Jackets in that game. I felt like, yeah, the Red Wings were up 1-0 in that game on Monday night, but Columbus just got penalty after penalty, and then just it all unraveled. And it was like, you knew why it unraveled. I think Bob McGilligan on the post-game, play-by-play analyst, was on the post-game and, put it perfectly. Like, it's not like it unraveled so quickly, and it's not like you're wondering why it unraveled. The Blue Jackets had 7 penalties in that game. It was a ridiculously bad game as far as playing clean hockey. And, of course, it was like this week at Nationwide Arena, it was just at the Ice House this week, it was holy crap. Like, what are the Blue Jackets going to do to resurrect the season? They have all these guys healthy. They had this big offseason, this big lead up to this season where you had Provorov, Damon Severson, you drafted Adam Fantilli, you got Zach Werenski back, and good news on Zach Werenski, by the way. For everything that I read, it looks like he's going to try to play Friday, which is very good. It sounds like when he got hit by Hathaway, he kind of knew it wasn't going to be long-term right away. So that's a very good sign. Very good sign. And it was a cheap hit. He even called it a dirty hit. Zach Werenski did. He's like, yeah, it was a dirty hit. Yeah, of course it was. You could see as Zach Werenski was getting hit by Hathaway, he's looking at the ref like, what is this guy doing? He's just diving at my knee. And there's something to be looked at there, I feel like. There's definitely something to be looked at, investigated. Not looked at, investigated. I would like to see a full-blown investigation done on Philadelphia, especially if they continue to do that all year, taking dives at knees of, big-time players on teams. And if anybody knows who is a big-time player on the Blue Jackets, Zach Werenski, John Tortorella, he knows how important that. I'm not saying anything. I don't want to get on here and accuse anybody of anything. But to me as a fan, I was like, that play was so dirty that, like, I almost want it looked at. Anyway, getting completely off topic here. What I wanted to say is after the Red Wings beat the Penguins tonight, I went back, watched some of that Blue Jackets-Red Wings game from Monday night. Don't ask why I did it. I just was like, maybe I'll see something that'll make me feel better. And I didn't. I think the Blue Jackets played a very sloppy, lazy game. But I will say, if the Blue Jackets had found a way to convert on a goal early in that first period when they were putting pressure on James Reimer and they had, Emil Bemstrom cooking, they had Ken Johnson cooking, Kirill Marchenko had like 3 shots in that first period. If any of those shots fall, and it was by far the Blue Jackets' best period offensively, was that first period. Everything felt normal in that game, right? The first period didn't feel like, oh my gosh, let's tear the franchise down. The Blue Jackets went into their locker room down 1-0. And, the one goal that they did give up was just a nice play. Adam Boquist was kind of a deer in headlights he got so many young defensemen got, blamed for that loss. Damon Severson got sat the entire third period in that game. And I kind of want to get to some of the quotes that the Blue Jackets staff members and Blue Jackets players were saying today, courtesy of Jeff Svoboda, Blue Jackets Insider. He's on Twitter or on X at Jackets Insider. He does a great job covering the team. We've had him on the show last week. He's phenomenal. He says, Damon Severson said being held out of the third period Monday after his turnover that led to the Detroit goal, which I think that goal made it 2-0. And it was a turnover. He was looking for Patrick Laine. He was in the corner. I don't think it was the craziest pass ever. Like, he was just trying, like, that's what Damon Severson does. If anybody had been paying attention to what Severson, and now I'm not quoting Damon anymore, obviously. I'm jumping out of the quote just because it's how my ADHD brain tends to work. If anybody had watched Damon Severson play in the preseason or watched him play in New Jersey, you know that he is the perfect offensive defenseman in the sense that he's going to get that puck off his stick and to a forward in the neutral zone as fast as possible. And sometimes it's going to get picked off. It's going to go the other way. And it's crappy, but it's oftentimes up to his defense partner to step up and make a play. And in this case, it was Adam Boquist that was playing with them, who is also not really the most defensively responsible defenseman. Adam Boquist is a lot like Damon Severson. He's also a guy who's going to get the puck in the corner, turn his head, and look for the first forward he sees, no matter how far down the ice he is. He's going to try to hit a stretch pass. And oftentimes it's going to work, but there are every so often where it's going to get picked off and go the other way. So Damon Severson, who could have been, just so upset about being pulled in that third period, had this to say. He said, quote, "I made a key mistake at the wrong time. Obviously, I'm well aware that I just can't do that," end quote. Stand-up guy, as Jeff Svoboda finishes off that tweet. Stand-up guy. He's a young player who, again, not egotistical, just admits that he made a bad pass. I actually thought Patrick Laine could have done a better job at maybe knowing that interception was going to happen and trying to disrupt that play a little bit more. And actually just rewatching that game in general and taking my thoughts that I had initially about that game from Monday night, I really think the Blue Jackets should have done a better job. Their forwards should have done a much, much better job maintaining possession, not giving up on possession in the offensive zone so easily. Because I think in order for the Blue Jackets to score goals and to keep up with teams, they're going to need to rely on their defensemen. They're going to need to rely on establishing a presence in the offensive zone. And they don't even have to have possession in the offensive zone. I just mean like just make it tougher for teams like Detroit to get the puck out of their own zone. Like don't just give up on the play so easily, which is why, if you were following along on Twitter today, Jeff Svoboda, who was covering practice, pointed out that they were doing a lot of one-on-one drills today. Pascal Vincent was putting an emphasis on one-on-one battles because the Blue Jackets, they had no fight, at least the forwards. I didn't see any fight out of the forwards on Monday night. It was atrocious. And this is also from Jeff Svoboda. I'll read one more quote, and then we got to take a break. He said, Coach Pascal Vincent confirmed winning battles was the focus of today's grueling practice. He said, quote, we need to find a way to sustain the mindset even when we are tired. So lots of one-on-one drills today. We're going to get to work until we become better, end quote. So the vibe that I'm getting out of the Ice House in yesterday's practice and in Wednesday's practice is that the team is absolutely not content at all with how Monday's game went down, which why should they be? Because right now they've played 3 home games. They haven't yet to play a road game. That's actually coming up Saturday. They go to Minnesota, who, without looking at the standings, I will look at the standings. The Minnesota's a good team. They're 2-1-0. And that's going to be a tough game for the Blue Jackets. And I even think they have a tough game on Friday night. The Flames, who just lost to the Penguins and the Capitals, they are probably looking for a win and probably looking at the Blue Jackets like this is our chance to get one. So, and I know we'll talk more about that game tomorrow as Jay comes back and we discuss kind of what the Blue Jackets need to do to defeat the Calgary Flames. In a moment, I want to look at the Metropolitan Division because, as I mentioned, the Red Wings just beat the Penguins tonight. There was another Metropolitan game, and we will talk about that here in just a second on Locked On Blue Jackets. Snap into the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Win or lose, the app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. I like to make same-game parlays. I like to bet on the NHL. I bet on anytime goal scorers. I was chasing Ovechkin tonight. He has no goals yet this year. At some point, he needs to score a goal, so I'm probably just going to end up chasing that one responsibly. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, as I just mentioned back there were 2 Metropolitan games tonight. The Penguins were on the road to face the Red Wings. I talked about that one a little bit. Red Wings get the job done, 6-3. And, man, the Penguins are still going to be good. Like, the Penguins are still definitely in the mix for the playoffs this year. Just with all the additions that they've added. Riley Smith is going to be huge addition for them. And obviously Erik Karlsson's a 3-time Norris Trophy winner. And he looked like it tonight. And Ville Husso had the best of him. Don't get me wrong, but Karlsson did get a goal. He's unbelievable. So they're definitely going to be a problem. Malkin looked a little bit slow tonight, so that was good, even though he had a goal as well. I feel like I'm saying guys sucked even though they had goals. But, so that's good for the Blue Jackets. Obviously, it's good for the Blue Jackets when Metropolitan teams lose. So huge there. And probably a little bit of a confidence boost. The team that just smoked you, the team that just shut you out at home, just went on to beat the Penguins. So, and then the other game tonight were the Senators and Capitals. And the Sens, man, the Sens are ridiculous this year. Already 3-1 to start the season. And they just absolutely routed the Capitals tonight, 6-1. John Carlson gets the lone goal for the Capitals, but Josh Norris, who was back in the lineup for the first time this season and had missed a huge chunk of last year as well, he had 2 goals tonight and was +1. Tim Stützle had 3 apples on the night. So just a really good night there. Claude Giroux had a goal. Vladimir Tarasenko had a goal. This team is ridiculous, man. Just absolutely ridiculous. I don't think Korpisalo was in net. Now that I say all this, it was Antoine Forsberg tonight who stopped 23 of 24 shots. So very good game out of him. And we do know that they have Korpisalo, so they're going to be ridiculous this year. Thank God the Blue Jackets don't have to worry about them. And in fact, we are going to look at the Metropolitan. I don't think the Blue Jackets are going to have to worry about the Capitals this year. That's the good thing. It does really feel like that the whole thing kind of revolves around Alex Ovechkin. And if he's not playing his tip-top game, which to start the season he has not played his tip-top game, then they kind of just lost. Darcy Kemper, not very good tonight against the Senators. He had a good game this past game against the Flames, but overall not a good effort tonight out of him. I don't even need to read the stats. I mean, he gave up 6 goals. I'm sure you already can make that up in your head that he didn't have a good night. But looking at the rest of the Metropolitan Division, the Devils are actually off to a little slow start as well. 1-1-1. The Flyers have 2 wins already, so they're 2-1 to start the year. So that was a team that, based off opening night, I also said I feel like John Tortorella is going to pull a lot out of that team. And yeah, they got a 2-0 win at home against the Canucks this week. And yeah, it's great for that team, great for that franchise who has been through just quite a lot of pain as well as the Blue Jackets have. But Flyers, they have a couple Stanley Cups in their trophy case. I think they have 2 Stanley Cups. I don't know. Hayden doesn't know puck. There's a moment there. I'm sorry, I don't keep track of how many cups the Flyers have. I know they have at least 1, so I'll give them that. But they're off to a really solid start. The Rangers are 2-1. They beat the Buffalo Sabres on opening night, lost to the Blue Jackets, and beat the Yotes 2-1. Something about the Coyotes this year. I feel like the Coyotes are kind of that team that always have a really good start. And I say really good start. They're 1-2, and their 2 losses are to New York teams. Again, a 2-1 loss to the Rangers, and they also lost 1-0 last night, 2 nights ago, against the Islanders. And the Islanders, man, don't sleep on the Islanders. They're 2-0 to start the year. Matt Barzal's back. He had the lone goal in their 1-0 victory. And actually, if you really want an interesting game to watch coming up on Friday night, I know everybody will be tuning into the Blue Jackets game. If you're here, you'll be watching the Blue Jackets game. But also at 7:30, you'll have Islanders and Devils. I think that will be really interesting to see. The Devils are off this huge high last year. Beat the Rangers in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they had an unreal season. They had great additions this offseason as well, getting Tyler Toffoli. And now looking at it, I don't know how good the Devils are going to be this year. Probably very solid. Again, they're just 1-1-1 to start the year. And here I am. I'm sitting here. I started this episode by saying, Columbus, don't give up on the season yet. It's not that the Blue Jackets are going to – my reason for why we aren't just going to write the Blue Jackets off as a lottery team is because they've played 3 hockey games. They've played 3 hockey games, guys. It's like they have 79 more left to go. We did put an emphasis on the Blue Jackets need to have a good start to the season, and they need to make sure that they're in the playoff picture, by the end of November. And, there's still 6-7 weeks of hockey before we get there. Six weeks of hockey before we get to Thanksgiving. So Blue Jackets have plenty of time to make back ground. And in fact, they got the Flames on Friday night. Saturday, quick turnaround. They're in Minnesota. And then couple days they'll rest, and then they'll come back and face the Ducks on Tuesday. And the Ducks actually 1-1 to start the season. So that's a little scope of what's going on around the NHL. Obviously, the Carolina Hurricanes are off to a great start. They're the defending Metropolitan champions. What is it, 3-4 years in a row? They've been ridiculous, and they're 3-1 to start the year. But yeah, man, it's kind of like the Blue Jackets fans are going to have to really root against teams. Obviously, Pens and Capitals, you'll always be rooting against those teams, but they're really going to have to be rooting against teams like the Flyers this year. Like, we need them to be getting some L's. We cannot have them in the playoff picture. And then the Islanders, who are just going to be tough. They're going to be a tough out no matter what. And, I mean, it's a really tough division again. But it is good to know that the Capitals will not be terrorizing people. I don't think, based off their 6-1 loss tonight, I don't think they're going to be too much of a problem. But again, I'm willing to look at this past Monday game and just be like, clean up the penalties. Clean up the penalties, and the forwards got to play better. The forwards got to try harder to just get just be relentless. Don't let the puck exit the offensive zone. It felt like they were getting too cute with their passes, but even when they would make an errant pass, they would just give up on the play. Like, be disruptive out there. I feel like those are the best hockey players to root for anyway, being disruptive and giving your defenseman a chance to get up in the offense and put some pucks on net, because the Blue Jackets are so dangerous when they get shots on the outside, on the perimeter from Jake Bean, who is, assisted on – he's got – Jake Bean's off to a fantastic start this year. He's got 2 points in 3 games, 1 goal and an apple, and he's +2 on the year. He's a great offensive defenseman and he's also defensively more responsible than I think like guys like Adam Boquist and Andrew Peak. So Jake Bean's a guy that and like Zach Werenski, when the Blue Jackets get Zach back in the lineup, he is a shining example of a player who can fuel your offense if he just has a chance to get his skates in the ozone and get into the play a little bit. And it doesn't matter if you lose possession and the puck gets rimmed around the boards, as long as your defensemen have a chance to try to keep the puck in the zone. That's the most important thing. The Blue Jackets were not able to even put a little pressure on the Red Wings to try to get their puck out of their zone. It was just easy turnovers, and then it was back the other way. Defensemen were caught with 0 speed in their legs at the red line, and then like some of our centers had a really hard time getting back. Sean Corrali, he just got dog walked by Dylan Larkin when that goal that was scored to go up 3-0 for the Red Wings. Might be having my goals mixed up. I'm sorry. I really am trying to forget this Blue Jackets and Red Wings game and just move on. And with that, I am going to move on. Put this one away finally. Jay and I will tomorrow be doing more talk on the Flames game, as I said, that's coming up on Friday night. But I do need to take one more break, and I actually want to read some Monster stats this year, because the Monsters are 2 games in the books. They, as I pull up the standings here, I had the stats open. The Monsters 1-1 start to the year. So it's nice. It's nice to get them going, and I'm sure the Blue Jackets will be calling players up from that squad soon, because they need a revival. They need a revival, I feel like, in their middle 6. Something needs to be done there, because Texier, Bemstrom, those guys aren't looking as good as I thought they would look in the first 3 games. I feel like guys like Jack Roslovic, who didn't play until was this Red Wings game, his first game. He actually looked like a player that the Blue Jackets missed, a guy that was playing with a good amount of speed and playing with just a heads up attitude. And I think the Blue Jackets really need that right now. But there are some guys that I want to highlight here with the Cleveland Monsters, and I'm going to do that just after the break on Locked On Blue Jackets. All right, looking at the Monsters stats, this guy who in yesterday's draft, where Jay and I were picking a player from each round, he took Trey Fix Wolansky on his team in – God, what round was Trey Fix Wolansky? Late in the draft. I don't have it from me. 7th round draft pick in 2018. And he's 5'7". He led the Monsters in points last year. We said all offseason that he was the guy who was next up, right? Like he had checked all the boxes he had needed in the AHL last season. And I thought he had a really good camp. He's a smaller dude, so he definitely gets pushed around out there. but he has 5 points to start the year in 2 games. Like, again, he is going to light up the AHL again. He's great on the power play. I don't know why Pascal Vincent won't call him up and play him on the 4th line. Like, he absolutely deserves a shot. I think he is, unless he's like in meetings talking about like, I'm too nervous to play in the NHL. I don't think that's the case. I don't imagine that the dudes in the American Hockey League are that much bigger than the dudes in the NHL, but maybe there's something to be said there. I just feel like he absolutely deserves playing time in the NHL. Another guy that I think deserves playing time is Jet Greaves. He has not yet played in a game this year for Columbus, I don't believe. It's been initially looking at the Cleveland Monsters. I think Trey Fix Wolansky absolutely needs to be up. Yes, okay, so Jet Greaves and Pavel Sheahan have both played in a game. Pavel Sheahan gave up 5 goals in the first game he played. Jet Greaves only allowing 2, getting a win in his, stopping 29 of 31 shots for a .93 save percentage. How, like, these two guys, Trey Fix Wolansky and Jet Greaves, who just get totally overlooked by the organization for some reason, I think both of them need to be getting shots in this lineup, in the NHL lineup, and I don't know what it's going to take for them to do it. I'm sure at some point Pascal Vincent will come to his senses, will realize that these players have 100% graduated from the American Hockey League, pulled them up in the lineup, and I'm sure they'll play great for Columbus. There'll be some growing pains, definitely, because we know, like, once a player can look really good in a game or two, but once these minor league hockey league players start playing 10, 15, 20 games, you see that it starts to catch up for them. I'd like to know how those guys can handle it, because if they can handle it, then they need to be in the NHL lineup helping this team try to win games, because it's do or die right now. And I will say, with all this being said, again, I feel like Pascal Vincent is the right guy for this job. I do. I feel like there's a sense of urgency with him, especially this week at practice. And I want to read one more tweet for you guys before we pack things up here for the night. This one is from Brian Hedger, another great writer for the Blue Jackets. Said, looked like practice was wrapping up, and there was a heavy conditioning bag skate going on right now at the Ice House. Starting to feel like Boone Jenner may need to shout out, Boone Jenner, Dorchester, Ontario, to make it stop. That's a great tweet from Brian Hedger, and he is a fantastic follow. You can find him on X at Brian Hedger, and he's a writer for The Dispatch. And, follow all those guys. Hedger, Portsline, Svoboda, they're all fantastic, do a great job covering the Blue Jackets. And so do we. We do a great job covering the Blue Jackets, just not as good as those guys. You come here to hear us just ramble and talk about mostly nothing, because until the Blue Jackets get back on the ice, they're never going to be able to shake this one off. And we are just a day away from them getting back on the ice. It's nice that they did have this kind of miniature bye week here to reset things. And you get a game Friday night at home against a Flames team who's struggling. We will preview all of that tomorrow. And thank you for checking us out today. Again, tomorrow, we are previewing the Johnny Gaudreau, Erica Branson revenge game as the Flames come to town. We know Flames fans on the internet are still very salty, very mad at the city of Columbus. I hope any of them that are making the journey here have a very nice time in the city of Columbus tomorrow. I hope it's very good weather. I have not had the chance to check, but have a very enjoyable fall Friday in Columbus, because this is a very nice city. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We're free on YouTube, free on the Sirius XM app. My name is Hayden Housewarn. You can find me on Twitter at HaydenH971. You can find Jay on Twitter at _JAKOBFORSTER. You can also find the show on Twitter at LO_Blue Jackets. Make sure you give Locked On Blue Jackets a follow on Twitter. You can also email us, lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening, and until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.